In every society, there exists a hidden tension. It's not between the rich and the poor, nor between the powerful and the powerless. It is the subtle friction between the many and the few, between those who go along with the world and those who see through it. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most misunderstood philosophers of the 19th century, had a name for these individuals: the troubled exceptions. Those whose minds moved against the grain of society. Those who by their very nature posed a threat, not by rebellion, not by aggression, but by simply seeing too clearly. He believed that highly intelligent people do not simply observe life, they penetrate its illusions. And that, he said, is dangerous. Because society depends on illusion. It depends on the useful lie. The illusion of progress, the illusion of fairness, the illusion of shared values, even when most are only playing a role. But the highly intelligent do not play roles easily. They ask, why are we doing this? They see the contradictions. They pull at the threads. And in doing so, they become a threat, not in action, but in awareness. This is Schopenhauer's dark insight, that intelligence, when deep enough, becomes incompatible with conformity, and that society, often unknowingly, punishes those who think too much. In his work The World as Will and Representation, Schopenhauer argued that human life is ruled by an irrational force, what he called the will. It is this blind striving force that drives most people through life without reflection. He believed that the majority are content to live according to habit. They follow instinct, tradition, authority, without asking why. But the highly intelligent, the rare few, are burdened by the need to ask, to understand, to see through the veil. This, Schopenhauer believed, made them outsiders. Society, he claimed, does not like to be questioned. It likes peace, and peace is maintained through agreement. Even if the agreement is false, the philosopher, the thinker, the deeply intelligent individual, they disrupt that agreement. Not through protest, but through presence. They do not fit, they cannot fit. And because of that, society subtly turns against them. This is not a conspiracy. It is not coordinated. It is quiet. It is unconscious. The highly intelligent are often met, not with outright hatred, but with subtle resistance. Dismissal, alienation, mockery, exclusion. Not because they are wrong, but because they are uncomfortable. They disturb the surface of things. They are mirrors that reflect too much. And that reflection is threatening. According to Schopenhauer, awareness, true deep awareness, comes at a cost. The more clearly you perceive the illusions of society, the more isolated you become from it. Not physically, but spiritually, emotionally. You begin to notice the performance of everyday life, how people speak in scripts, not in truths, how much energy is spent maintaining appearances, not seeking understanding. And you begin to feel alone. The highly intelligent, Schopenhauer observed, do not merely think differently. They feel differently. They often carry an unbearable sensitivity, not just to noise or chaos or contradiction, but to dishonesty, to falseness, to the quiet inauthenticity that underlies so much of social life. This sensitivity is not a flaw. It's not something to fix. It is simply a consequence of heightened perception. But perception is a lonely gift. Schopenhauer even compared the deeply intelligent individual to someone who wakes up from a dream and finds that everyone else is still asleep. What do you do when you are awake in a world that prefers dreams? You can try to explain the truth, but most won't listen. Not because they can't understand, but because they don't want to. People will protect their illusions at all costs, and this is why Schopenhauer believed highly intelligent people are often quietly punished by society, because they threaten comfort, not intentionally, but inherently. Their presence is enough to unsettle the sleepwalkers. To see clearly is to suffer, Schopenhauer once wrote, and he meant it, because when you peel back the surface of life, when you see the suffering, the repetition, the self-deception. You begin to ask, what is the point? This is not despair, it is clarity. And clarity, at first, feels like despair. Highly intelligent people often arrive at this point early in life. While others chase status, success, validation, they begin to feel the emptiness behind it all. They ask, what happens after I achieve everything I was told to chase? And more often than not, they find silence. Because society has no answer. It was never designed for truth. It was designed for survival. For Schopenhauer, this realization was devastating, but also liberating. It meant that life could no longer be about chasing approval or fitting in. It had to become something else, something deeper, something inward. He called this the beginning of the philosophical life. The moment when the intelligent person stops trying to be understood and begins trying to understand. Not others, not society, but themselves, and the world beneath the surface. This is where true wisdom begins, but it also means letting go of comfort, of belonging, of the safety that comes with being like everyone else. If society cannot offer truth, then where does one go? For Schopenhauer, the answer was not outward, it was inward. He believed that the highly intelligent must ultimately withdraw, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. Not because they hate the world, but because they have seen too much of it. This doesn't mean isolation in the physical sense. It means detachment, a deliberate internal freedom from the expectations and illusions of the crowd. In his philosophy, this detachment is called denial of the will, a radical letting go of the endless striving that drives most of humanity. To deny the will is to stop playing the game. It is to no longer chase approval, power, or belonging, and instead, to cultivate an inner space of quiet awareness, a place untouched by chaos. But here lies the paradox. This transcendence, this clarity, comes with a price. Because once you no longer live for the world, you will no longer be of the world, and many won't understand you. You may speak truth, but others will hear arrogance. You may offer insight, but others will feel threatened. You may show peace, and others may call you cold. The more you transcend the norms of society, the less society will embrace you. And that is the burden of intelligence. You see, the world admires brilliance, but only when it is useful, when it builds wealth, when it entertains, when it serves. But when brilliance becomes inward, when it questions the very structures that society depends on, it becomes dangerous. This is what Schopenhauer knew, that true intelligence, if followed to its conclusion, leads not to dominance, but to detachment. And yet within this detachment, a subtle revolution begins. Because when the highly intelligent person stops playing society's game, they stop being manipulated by it. They no longer chase status. They no longer compete in the endless treadmill of comparison. They no longer need to be understood. And this in itself is a form of power, not power over others, but power over one's own mind. Schopenhauer believed that the highest state of human existence was not success, not happiness, not even knowledge. It was serenity, the calm that comes from seeing through the illusions of the world, and no longer being controlled by them. In this state, the intelligent individual becomes free, not because the world changed, but because they did. They begin to live life like a quiet monk in the midst of chaos, observing without reacting, understanding without judging, participating, but not performing. This is the quiet revolution of being. It is not loud, it is not visible, but it is powerful. Because when you are no longer trying to win the world, you are free to see it. And in that seeing, there is peace. If the world is full of illusion and striving, if society punishes depth and rewards conformity, then where can the intelligent soul go to rest? Schopenhauer had an answer, a portal to transcend the suffering of the world without abandoning it. That portal is art. He believed that art, true art is not entertainment. It is liberation. It is one of the rare moments when the will falls silent and we see life not as something to conquer, but simply to observe. In his words, during aesthetic contemplation, we are no longer individual. We are no longer caught in desires, fears, or identity. We become pure perception. Think of the last time a piece of music stopped you in your tracks, not because it was catchy, but because it echoed something inside of you that you didn't have words for. Think of a painting, a poem, a film that made you feel both small and infinite. These moments, Schopenhauer believed, are not distractions from life. They are glimpses of truth. They are the rare states in which the intelligent person can feel at home in the world, not because the world makes sense, but because beauty cuts through its chaos. For the highly intelligent, who see through so much, art becomes a kind of salvation, a gentle reminder that even if life is full of suffering, it can still be beautiful. That truth does not always need to be spoken. Sometimes, it is better sung, painted, whispered through stories and shadows, and in those moments, the intelligent mind rests, not by escaping reality, but by stepping outside of time. Eventually, the intelligent person must build a kind of inner sanctuary, not made of stone or solitude, but of understanding, an inner life so rich, so self-sustaining, that the noise of the world can no longer reach it. Schopenhauer warned that no one can escape suffering entirely, but he also believed that suffering can be transformed, if it is understood. This is why he placed such value on contemplation, on philosophy, on stillness. In silence, the intelligent person finds what society cannot offer: depth, coherence, perspective. They learn not to fear their alienation, but to honor it. They begin to see their difference not as a defect, but as a doorway into a richer, more conscious way of being. And when they walk through it, they no longer beg the world for approval. They no longer need to be accepted, because they have accepted themselves. And in that moment, the punishment of society loses its sting. The intelligent soul, once rejected by the crowd, becomes its own source of peace. Once the intelligent person detaches from the illusions of society, once they find peace not in the world, but within themselves, a surprising shift begins to unfold. They begin to look back at the world, not with resentment, not with superiority, but with compassion. Schopenhauer believed that compassion is the highest moral value, not because it's virtuous, but because it arises naturally from understanding suffering. When you see clearly, you understand that most people are not malicious, they are simply unconscious. They are caught in the machinery of desire, fear, and illusion, chasing things that will never satisfy them. They are asleep, and their cruelty, their pettiness, their aggression, all of it comes from pain. To be highly intelligent is to feel that pain, not just your own, but the pain of others, to carry it like an invisible weight, even when no one sees it. And once you stop expecting the world to make sense, you start to forgive it for its madness. You start to feel a kind of soft sorrow, not bitter, but wise. A sorrow that leads not to withdrawal, but to gentle strength. Because when you no longer need the world's approval, you are finally free to serve it in your own way. Not by preaching, not by fixing, but by being. By offering your calm in the midst of panic. By offering depth in a shallow moment. By listening when no one else does. This is compassion without illusion. It is not loud. It is not performative. It is not dependent on reward. It is the quiet love that arises when you understand that we are all suffering, each in our own hidden way. And suddenly, the intelligent soul, once isolated, finds its place in the world again, not because it was accepted, but because it has learned to accept. In the end, what does it mean to be highly intelligent? It means you will see what others avoid, feel what others suppress, question what others accept. And yes, it means you may be misunderstood, feared, punished, but it also means you carry a strength that most will never understand. Not the strength to dominate, but the strength to remain yourself in a world that constantly demands your compromise. Schopenhauer knew this was not an easy path. It is not full of applause or celebration. It is often lonely, often dark, but it is real, and it is free. The intelligent soul walks this path, not because it's better, but because it's theirs. Because once you awaken to truth, you cannot go back to sleep. You can only go forward, quietly, deliberately, compassionately. And in doing so, you don't just survive the world's punishment, you transcend it. And now as the world outside quiets, and the weight of thought begins to settle, we arrive at the end and the beginning. Because this journey, through Schopenhauer's eyes, through the burden of intelligence, through loneliness, rejection and quiet transcendence, is not really about philosophy. It's about you. It's about the flame you've carried in silence, in secret, often misunderstood, but never extinguished. The world may never fully understand you. It may never see the depth of your compassion, your insight, your pain. But that doesn't mean you are broken. It means you are awake. And in a world lulled to sleep by noise and distraction, to be awake is a radical act of courage. Schopenhauer did not offer false hope. He did not promise a life without suffering, but he offered something else, something more enduring. He showed us that even in a world full of illusion, there is a way to live truthfully, quietly, authentically, even beautifully. He showed us that the highest intelligence is not just about seeing more, it's about feeling more, bearing more, loving more. Not with grand gestures, but with a soft presence, a deep calm, a soul that walks through fire and comes out glowing. So as you rest now, perhaps somewhere inside you, something is healing, something is accepting. Maybe the part of you that always felt like an outsider is beginning to see that it was never exiled. It was always called to something deeper, called to carry the light in a world afraid of shadows. You are not alone in that, not anymore. And even if the world cannot yet see your light, know this: it is needed, it is rare, and it is real, and it is real. Stay with it, honor it, live it. And when you feel lost again, as we all do from time to time, remember this: you are not strange for seeing the world differently. You are courageous for not pretending otherwise. Sleep well, or simply be still. You've done enough for now, and the world in all its madness can wait. And now, return to yourself, to silence, to stillness. The mind can rest, the soul can breathe, and in this quiet, you are free. Pause. Gentle rain grows just slightly. You may drift into sleep, or simply stay here with your thoughts, unrushed, unbothered, unafraid. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being who you are. We'll see you again soon.